It's Wednesday, the 8th of July, 9:46 p.m. Before I do anything else, I'm going to run a little bit of a seeing test. 9:46 p.m. puts us about, let's call it a half an hour before sky dark. I can still see the glow of the sunset off towards the northwest. Venus is riding pretty high and bright. But what I'm going to do here is step through a series of exposure times until it whites out. So right now we're at 0.5 seconds exposure on Messier 56, a globular cluster in Lyra. So we're looking away from the sun to the pretty much to the east. The angle of the scope suggests it's probably 30 degrees from culminating. And what I'm going to do is keep stepping up the exposure time. So this is 0.5, and we're only doing single stacks. In a second, we should see it pop a little bit, and it did. That's 1 second. We're still getting good views. 2 seconds. I'm not adjusting the contrast at all. It's defaults. There we go. We're still getting views. Let's go to 5 seconds. We're not whiting out yet. Let's see if at what point we gather too much light from the background sky in order to prevent us from seeing it. And no, we're not having a problem at 5 seconds. Let's jump to 10 seconds. I am using ASI Air Live stacking. However, I discovered a modality where if you never press the arrowhead button after loading the app and then connecting up with the ZWO imager, it'll allow you just to step through exposure times. That's our 10 seconds. Now, ideally, we would not be able to get to 120 seconds exposure time before sky dark, or before the seeing transparency is especially good. So you could be could be midnight, and you still wouldn't be able to get to it because you have high thin clouds, possibly reflecting local light, possibly the moon, something lighting up the atmosphere itself, preventing the ability to find stars for triangulation. And here's a perfectly good example. 30-second exposure at 9:48, and we are getting wiped out. It's 2 minutes in, 50 seconds in. Let's resume this a little bit later. And I'll tell you what time I do manage to go on to a 30-second exposure and get a reasonable transparency sky. Now, almost 3 minutes into this astro vid. Interesting, after achieving 30 seconds, I backed down to 10, and we're still getting white out. But we can see, all right, well, that was because it had held some residual images. Back to 10 seconds, and then I will push it forward, and we can watch it do the transition to 30 seconds one more time. I'm going to pause on this vid in order to allow it to achieve its 30 seconds of a single stack. Okay, I've been noticing something. Every 30 seconds, the screen background sky gets darker. Let's watch it happen again. Boy, that one looked pretty good. All right, so I was seeing that stepwise function of this background sky darkening with every reiteration of a 30 seconds from the last time I mentioned that we were at a 30-second exposure. Now I'm going to step it up to 60 seconds exposure time, and we'll see, you saw it go back to doing a baseline image. So somewhere between 1 and 5 seconds this baseline image is based on in terms of exposure time. About to see our first 60-second stack, and it pretty much did what it did last time when we went from 10 to 30. We had a reasonable background sky, and then it went all awash, but we at least are seeing stars on this occasion, plus the globular cluster Messier 56 itself. And the time now is 9:56. Okay, the same occurrences occurred, the phenomena has occurred. The stars the globular cluster got more present, stars popped out. There's a little diminishment in the brightness of the background sky with a 60-second next 60-second iteration. Okay, let's watch it pop. And now we've added a little bit darker background sky. The color has been changing the whole time from a very light, bright aqua blue, and now it's got a purplish tint in it after the second iteration of 60 seconds. Okay, another iteration. I suspect the color changes are coming down to attempts on the part of the histogram to adapt to the brightness of the screen, and when it does so, it selectively changes the bypass spectrum or the exclusion spectrum of light of different frequencies. That's why I believe that's why we're seeing the color changes. Of course, it could have to do with the atmosphere and whatever light is being reflected into the atmosphere with the sunset as well. Okay, we're now starting to get to the point where if I were to play with the histogram or the contrast, I could eliminate most of the background color. And the time happens to be 10 o'clock p.m. I would have to look up what time sunset was to determine how many minutes after sunset on this date, the 8th of July, 2026, would be relevant to the diminishing. Now, I will say the sky has been particularly good this evening, so I suspect we're going to get some good views, except for those diffraction bars that can block some of those spectacular views, like the Swan Nebula, etc., to the south. So anyway, let's cross our fingers and hope I can pick them up as I do the El Quattro's POSSably series this evening. Okay, I just switched over to 2-minute exposure time, 120 seconds. This is our initial view. I suspect it's somewhere, like I said, between 1 to 5 seconds in exposure time. I'd have to experiment with that in the future. I do not wish to do that now. I got plenty to do this evening on such a very fine night sky, with the moon probably about to enter into its third and final quarter before noon. Okay, so there we saw it. This is the pop, and this is the same basic cycle we typically see. This is a 120-second exposure. The time now is 10:04 p.m. Now, I could wait around for the sky to get darker, but here's what I'm going to do instead. First, I'm going to play with the contrast. I'm going to push it up to my typical value of about 3.0 for these longer cycle exposures. And it hasn't changed it much. All right. And now I'm going to go and see if I can't manually adjust it. No, I cannot manually adjust the histogram, so I'm going to have to go back to auto. Basically, the two slide bars in the histogram are all the way over to the right. And the color red is basically the left-hand side of the histogram screen, and the green is way over to the right-hand side, and nary do they touch. And with that, I am going to say carpe noctem on our seeing test. But before I do so, let's drop back down to 60 seconds and see if we've got a decent sky. Here's the initial swag at it, and I will wait till we get a 60 seconds in, and I will definitely knock this video off before 10 minutes have passed. And now we are going to see if we can get a stack. Okay, was not able to resolve stars at 60 seconds to get triangulate. Okay, was able to triangulate at 30 seconds. Classically, I would be very happy to begin doing an NGC El Quattro tour at this point if I were able to get 30-second exposures. Of course, I have to run at 5 seconds, so let's go down to that before we bail. 5 seconds, we've got 7 stacks, 56, globular cluster, Lyra, magnitude 8.3, 5 arc minutes in size, 32,900 light years distant, RA 191635, declination plus 30 degrees, 11 minutes 05. It now lies in the sky's middle third. We are approaching a 10-minute in on this basically setting, seeing, dark sky oriented discussion. And with that, I'm going to say carpe noctem.